Good morning, welcome to Daybreak Africa, coming to you from our studio right here in Ondo City. I am Angela Daku.
My name is Ikhonede Joshua Odeji. You're welcome once again to Daybreak Africa. Alright, welcome back to the show. If you just joined us, it's still Daybreak Africa. I hope you're enjoying the reports we just gave to you. And now it's time to go straight to our discussion. Today we'll be looking at overpricing of goods and services and how it affects Nigeria's inflation. Currently, when we are talking about overpricing in this context, we're talking about an unjustified addition of or an increment of price of goods and services. And if we are very observant in the Nigerian polity of today, a lot of things are being extremely overpriced. Scott Iguma and many people have gone on social media to talk about many sectors within the country. Even when we look at the the real estate sectors and other sectors out there, and now people just hike prices and all that just because they want to make unnecessary gains. And at the end of the day, this has affected Nigeria's inflation. The Nigerian government have tried a lot of things. They've tried price control. They've tried a lot of things, talking about the fact that they're trying to reduce the prices, but it seems not coming down, and it seems to be a very big bone of contention in the Nigerian polity of today. To discuss with us today, we have an economist in the house, in the person of Alphonsus Uchenna. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
So it's also nice having you here. It's good to. Let's go straight down to the discussion. We're talking about the thing called overpricing and how it's affecting our inflation currently in Nigeria. Recently, people talked about it. As of yesterday or 2 days ago, we saw that DSTV themselves are bringing up prices, and many other people. We've seen the telcos themselves, the telecommunications, added a bit of price. We've seen that in the oil sector. Now in the real estate sector, many people are calling out people, even in the food chain sector, that the prices are going high too much, and there is hardly any justifiable reasons for this price increase. What's your take on this current trends of overpricing we're having in our economic sector?
Thank you very much, my brother. I'm happy with the statement you made that the overpricing, the system of being unjustified. Unjustified in the sense that what I look at it is that it's the fixing of price to a particular goods and services and is higher more than what the market value of such goods and services. I think when you are actually fixing price to a good and services, there are some things you put into consideration, but it's quite very obvious that those things are not put into consideration, making it unjustifiable. Because for an industrialist or a business owner, for you to actually determine a price at which you explain to members of the public, you have to put into practice your cost of production. Cost of production attracts several variables, which we are very much aware about that. But the fact remains that what? It should be reasonable when making these appropriations. It should be reasonable in the sense that what? Most of these factors should be put into consideration. At the same time, if being called for explanation, it should be defendable. But I tell you, they cannot. And this one boils down to a particular system, which is what? The taxes, the tax collectors, the taxation system of Nigeria has something to do with it. Initially, oftentimes, when they say higher tax is being imposed on producers or industrialists, the burden tends to be transferred back
to the consumers.
But as far as I'm concerned, now when it comes to taxation, it's still a bit reasonable, coupled with the reform that is still coming up. But now, if you look at most of these reasons why producers or industrialists who are afraid to the fact that it's behind their price increment, you will see it still narrows down to most of the policies federal government has actually enacted, which to some extent you will not really blame them, because had it been in the first place, these things will not happen. We will have a more justifiable reasons to complain, to hold them responsible. Because if we should do that now, they will refer us back to most of these sectors being accrued to public sectors to be their determinant for overpricing, which at the same time, it is not a good reason. It's not enough reason for them to
overprice.
It's not. Now it has happened. we should be focusing much on what government is there to do to solve this menace. Like I said in the first place, is setting a price to a particular goods and services that is more than the market value, and obviously it's more than the market value of such goods. Now, coupled with the adverse effect it has on the economy, is always inflation. And that is why you see every consumers are out there lamenting. It's quite very unfortunate that when things like this happens, when hardship faces we Nigerians, obviously we are always in our own dynamic way to turn it to be a cruise. I saw it online when somebody said he's looking for a second-hand data bundles. Can you see? So I saw it, I smiled, I said, wow. Anyway, but we're all into it. We're actually there to buy, to bear the consequence. But the fact remains that what are the reasons behind overpricing? Like I said in the first place, it is not justifiable. But the fact remains that these are the things that will be held responsible. And if you look at history, it started ever since the removal of fuel subsidy. That policy gave rise to the price of fuel. And in that vein, every other sectors makes a corresponding effect to that. And I think this is actually the genesis, looking at this present administration. There are other factors coupled to it, but looking at this present administration, this is where the thing actually came up. Immediately the subsidy was removed, what happened? Prices of goods and services went up. Not just mere inflation, hyperinflation. But when you start experiencing 100% increment, you see it's hyper. Like I said in the first place, we're already into the mess. That is one of the reasons causing that. You see again, there is a problem which we are having in Nigeria, and this is actually applicable to we youth. We think the price of a commodity is a pointer or a factor that determines the quality of such products. And that is why you see producers like Apple, Samsung, when it comes to communication
and gadgets,
you see their prices is far higher
than the rest.
Because what? Because it's the prominency we have actually attached to their product. And that is why you see, if you don't use these two gadgets, you're not there. That is one factor. Another factor is what? The inability of producers to carry out a research. The ideology is that if you are an upcoming or you are a potential industrialist, either before or after making your production, you are supposed to embark on a market survey. Why are you embarking on a market survey? To see if consumers, what price will be affordable for consumers. You have to put that in consideration.
Because if there is no purchasing power,
on a more serious note,
your product won't sell.
This is what should be happening in an advanced country. But you see, these days, people careless. They come up with their goods and services, they calculate their cost of production, probably multiply it by a very good range, and they start selling out
without any market
survey, which is very, very bad. Unlike advanced countries, consumers will be put in place first. And that's one of the issues we discussed some time ago about consumerization
and consumer laws.
Of course, there is nothing to put in the consumer than what consumers, if they have the ability to afford the price at which you have attached to your product and services. And it must not change its quality. It mustn't change its quality. But the truth be told, they don't carry out the research. Even when they do, they still want to maximize their profits. And that is where the selfish interest is setting in. Of course, the prayer of every industrialist, every business ventures, every business tycoon is to maximize profits. Yes, maximize your profits, but not at the detriment of what? Consumers. It's a two-coined ways. You maximize your profit, what happens to consumers? They should be able to derive maximum satisfaction. I know I've been saying this, even despite the fact they are maximizing their profits, but the satisfaction is still on the zero level.
I can even call out some companies actually. Let me just swipe a tables with them, because you especially those companies that does biscuits,
of course,
sweets, and all those maybe detergent or something that is canned or all that.
Most especially biscuits.
Biscuits.
Most recent.
You will discover that you can't, even the chin companies, you can count the chin actually. They don't argue much with anybody. The only thing is just that they reduce the quantity, they reduce the quality, they increase price. It's the simple thing, and we all move along like nothing actually happens.
And are you very much aware that agencies that are expected to look into all this?
The agencies actually.
The agencies that should look to all this. So what is really happening?
Exactly.
You see that Nigeria is indeed a country whereby the public agency, the private agency are hard there to become comedians now. Our policies is now comedy. We implement, nobody follows up. Everybody goes like that. We do our normal things, expecting more policies that will bring about more burden on us, and we'll catch cruise over it.
But what do you think is responsible for the fact that we have agencies and policies, but yet nothing is being done? And
Corruption.
No one has been saying anything about
corruption. Corruption. That is a major problem, because we have the agencies. So why is it that they are not really working? I tell you, these days it's happening. I had an encounter recently, in the sense that was a discussion whereby I found myself into, and some pharmaceutical companies were called upon. They were named, which I'm very much aware about them. That know how before NAFDAC set their legs in Ondo town here, they will call them.
Wow.
And they will go to settle them. So what are we saying? The same thing applicable to organizations, even in the educational sector. It's everywhere. So you see, the fact is what? Corruption practices is making most of these agencies not do what? Not to do their work. But the most powerful thing is this to me, that these people are actually heartless. Because of one single entity, you are holding the life of multitude at risk. That just it. Because of one single entity, which happens to be the industrialists and the producers, and your own personal selfish interest as a member of that agency. Now the whole Nigerians
is held to ransom.
So the answer to that is actually corruption on the most serious note.
Well, earlier you kept talking about the part of overpricing leading to inflation. I'd like you to elaborate on the relationship between overpricing and how it relates with inflation, and how they kind of affect each other.
Inflation is said to be persistent increase in the price of goods and services. Then overpricing, like I told you in the first place, fixing a price to a particular goods and services more than the market value is still a part of increment.
Sure.
And when there is overpricing, then you will know that the policy of price control system is being abolished, even though it's not in the system. We are in the system whereby individuals, various industrialists will just determine the price at which they expend their goods to members of the public. We're in a system whereby Mr. A can wake up in the morning and say, oh, my boys, do not sell this for 10 naira. Start selling for what? 100 naira. We're in a situation whereby you go into a store, price of goods meant to be sold for 10 naira, for instance, Mr. B will come in at that particular point in time, they will tell Mr. B it is 100 naira. So there is no uniform prices. And when such happen, their mindset, like I said in the first place, is to maximize profit. So close substitute of such products will drive into competition. Competition is kind of what? Making more money. And when such happens, what happens to the price of the general price of goods and services? It increases. Because their mindset is this: when they maximize profits, it gives room for more investment for them. They create more wealth. So amidst those products of close substitutes, there's a serious competition amidst them. And for them to rub and shoulder between themselves, what happens? They want to make more investments, they want to maximize more profits. And how do they go about this? They reduces the quality of such products, they reduces their expenditure, their cost of production. They try as much as possible even to use adulterated products, so that what, their expenditures will go down.
Yes.
But when it comes to pricing, they increase their price to maximize profit. Then what is happening? There will be inflation in the economy. And that's why I said in the first place, they are using other factors. Though on the part of the government, they have actually failed. Because one way or the other, they actually gave room
For such.
for such.
Well, how do you think the government gave room for such? Because
Thank you very
recently,
much.
I want to just make a comment on something. Recently, the government of Ondo State, that was during the tenure of late Rotimi Akeredolu, looking at the fact that competition was supposed to make goods in the market cheaper, because then it discovered that this thing called unionism in the market made them to peg their prices at once. So if I'm buying a pepper that I'm supposed to buy for let's say 400 naira per normal, you see market women take it to like maybe 600, 700. These days you see them at 500, pegging it and all those kind of things. And the cost of production is way lower than that actually. Then you discover that, why are you guys not reducing your prices? Then those that intend to reduce their price in the market because they are not making sales, the union comes to them and begin to harass them, because why will your price be lower than the price of everybody? So in his tenure then, he decided to ban the unions and all those kind of things. So I to an extent, that's why I asked how do you think the government caused this whole thing? Because
before I make my contribution to your narrative, let me answer the question first. I am trying to think, to cite one or two illustrations or examples. But either way, when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came to office, the declaration of the fuel subsidy removal was announced before its implementation. What happened to price of goods and services?
it went up.
And when you ask them why, they have such responsibility.
Yeah, information sometimes controls market.
Which I so much believe is a very good example for them to have used, even though it's not, like I said, it's not justifiable, to have been used to increase price of the commodity. That is one factor why we have to hold government responsible. Number two factor boils down to the narrative we're about to make. You see, why do we have government? Is always at the benefit of the poor masses. But it's quite obvious that they are working against the poor masses. I used to say most often, what is being expected of us to even benefit from our leaders that we have legitimately put them into that office is better life, good standard of living. And one of the points here of good standard of living is actually enjoying most of these amenities at a reduced cost, at an affordable cost. But the reverse is the case. Reverse is the case. Let's make a kind of comparison, even when it comes to prices of food here in Nigeria compared to other countries. If you have any friends or relatives in another country, you see the rate at which they eat. You see the rate at which they procure food commodities, because it's what? It is cheaper. And any reliable government or any responsible leaders or administration should do what? One of a very good indicator that he or she will even pronounce himself that he's doing well is when prices of food is affordable. Because looking at Maslow hierarchy of needs, food is one of the very important needs of a human being.
Number one on the list.
Number one on the list. That should be tackled first. But you see the situation of things, they don't care about that. Of which they have one or two things to do. One of it is the indicator you just gave. I'm very much aware about the fact that some governors, some leaders banned unions. Just this morning, I had a conversation with one Okada rider. He was actually making reference to our former governor, Olusegun Mimiko. He made reference to him banning Okada unions then, which was a very good reason then. Now, even the union of a thing we're talking about, I think their own management or their own modus operandi in their administration should be critically looked into. Because this way, what we call union is no longer a union in Nigeria. Union is always for the good of you and I. But you see that reverse is the case. Unionism in Nigeria is now an avenue whereby union leaders makes more wealth from the struggle and pain of members of that union. It is here in Nigeria we see Okada riders, we see their union leaders, we see the big cars and the big houses they own. Without doing anything. Just send their boys out there to collect taxes from people. And people pay out of the little profit they have made. And you see those people enjoying life, living large, living big. Do we call that union? No.
Just more like an
what we know to be union is an injury to one and injury to all.
Yeah.
Does it still work? It doesn't work. So when some governments stop their operation, it's a good idea. But not just stopping their operation. I think they should be sensitized on what union should be. Not to inflate, not to affix more taxes on their members. And the members are not in any way benefiting anything. So that boils down there. Now, what is government expected to do as per union in controlling price of goods and services? I don't think it's anything bad if government can actually invite the union of fish sellers, invite them, their leaders, have a roundtable discussion with them, ask them how they are faring, not self-faring, the management of their management as per their association. Then push it to them. How can we be of help?
So that the prices
so that the price of fish will go down. The government can even give a kind of peg to it. It will work out. It will definitely work out. But the fact remains that how many government has done that? And when such happens, I don't think there's any big deal government should do for them. I think the primary objective of every government is to make available to everybody the relevant social amenities, which we call aids to trade. There's some aids to trade that enhance buying and selling and makes it easier and possible. Good transportation. If that is done, that is what we actually expecting from the dividend of democracy. If our roads are good, if our producers have access, they have easy access, easy proximity to what the source of raw materials, then these are the things government should do. Then they will not have any excuse to what? To overpricing. So a whole lot of them government should do to control that. And like I used to say, government should try as much as possible to uphold this what we call price control system. They'll be in charge of the price for which producers or investors expend to members of their public. There can be a kind of what we call subsidies as well. But are you very much aware that every community in the developed country have been subsidized? Yes, they have been subsidized. And let me give you one of the yardstick at which their own system of subsidy comes in. For every tax you pay as an individual, for every tax you pay as an organization, even church, you have a return at the end of the year. Are you aware about that? You have a return.
In developed countries?
Yes.
Because other developing countries
you have a return. Then even that system alone, then you have a voice to control the price in such a country. You have a voice to even suggest. You have a voice to place a benchmark in pricing system in such a country. Then what is happening in our country? We pay tax, we don't even get return. Even the amenities we are supposed to benefit, we're not even getting it.
Despite the
Talk
tax.
less of
Despite the
that's
tax.
different.
Well, we'll go for a very short break. When we get back, we'll continue. And this is where we'll go off for Go Start, a segment on Daybreak Africa designed to enlighten you on business ideas where you could start up anywhere you find yourself. Well, we're going for that, and when we're back, we'll delve into the second part of the discussion. So do stay tuned. Do not go anywhere. Be right back.
All right, welcome back. I hope you're enjoying Go Start. Now it's time to go back straight to our discussions. Yes, before we went on the short break, we have been discussing about overpricing of goods and services and how it affects Nigeria's economy. But Mr. Alphonsus Uchenna has been with us in the studio, to discuss this particular matter. Now, while we were on the break, actually, a question just popped up my mind. It's actually a statement, a popular statement to make in Nigeria. They say that in Nigeria, if the prices of things goes up, it never comes down. It defies the law of gravity. I don't. Let's have your reaction on that statement, actually.
Of course, yes. Like I said in the first place, I say it's not a reduce. You say, what goes up and never comes down. That is the price of goods and services. And that is what has been invoked all this while. And that is why people keep lamenting. Now the question is, do I now give a yes head to that? Because recently, I don't know, I've not gone to the market to make my investigation. I learned that the price of bags of rice has fallen, is down. I don't know how true is it.
No, I think majorly it's still expensive, but the only thing is just that compared to the prices during the festive period, we all know that once it's festive period in Nigeria, even though it's against logic, once it's festive period in Nigeria, the prices of goods and services, it goes up the roof. Whereas in other countries, you see that it comes down because it's a festive season. They have discounts, they have coupons and all that. So
can you see the reason why I said most of these things still lies in the hand of our leaders. They have a whole lot to do. They have a whole lot to do. The instrument towards putting this on a good path lies so much on them. And I will give let me give a kind of narrative, because they also know that these are things that should be done. Now let's come to the price for food, because it's a very more crucial aspect of human life. Now, I do say this, taking for instance on those states that a case study. For instance, we have farmers, those who are into agriculture. We have them in their large numbers. Now, if we should ask, probably there should be an avenue, though they know there should be an avenue, but it's not really existing. There should be an avenue whereby we have a panel discussion. Panel discussion in the sense that try to even use that to even carry out an assessment based on their performance. Ask the commissioner for commerce, the commissioner for agriculture, the impact they have in the lives and activities of the farmers. Because these days, you see farmers also have the ability to even stamp overprice in their goods and services, in their commodities. And they will have enough reason to justify that. Now most of the farm input, the prices of farm inputs has also gone
up
higher. It has gone up. So it's enough reason for them to do what? To even increase their own price. All because they also want to maximize their own profits. And they will go ahead to tell you that even my children in schools, the school fees has been increased by by federal government. You will see that this thing is intertwined. And that is why one of the reasons I said
relativism.
Exactly. That was one of the reasons why I said government has a whole lot to do. Because even governments are leaders in their own services they render to the public. They increase price. Look at education. I so much believe every institution in Nigeria experience increment in fee is everywhere, and people are lamenting, but we had no option. And that is why we see most of these industrialists or most of these businessmen who even have their award in these schools have no reason than to maximize profits so that they'll be able to what?
Pay for their school fees,
Run their own daily activities and all their transactional activities. That's why government can easily control this. And how would they do that? They should put the poor masses into consideration. There is nothing bad if government can subsidize the prices to farm inputs on a condition that you create a benchmark. It's possible that you create a benchmark for the pricing. Nobody can, you can just sue, you can just sue the government over that and you say you will win. It's not possible. A farmer who needed insecticide, or what do you call it, if it can be made available for them at a reduced price, fine. It will make their cost of production to fall, because high cost of production in a normal sense will give rise to prices of such commodities. So the target is to bring down the cost of production. So cost of production can be what? Can be subsidized by the government. And once that is done, then you cannot have every right, every power to give a benchmark that sell this to members of this public at this price.
All right.
And the same thing should happen to all other commodities. Even in the educational sector. Then that is when we now say, yes, we are all enjoying the dividend of good leadership, dividend of democracy.
Sorry, Joshua, before you ask your question, shortly before the break, you made mention of the fact that the government could actually subsidize some of these things, which you just mentioned as well. And you talked about the part of taxation. Now, one would think that when we are paying taxes, we ought to be seeing results from it.
Results from the tax.
And when you tend to ask some government officials, they will tell you that they're trying to settle this and settle that, and then Rome was not built in a day. They're trying to recreate the country and all of those stories.
Those excuses, so they are just to cover up their corrupt practices. On a more serious note, that's why at times I do say to myself, today I said to myself, at times when I listen to Showori, I said, leadership is actually very easy.
Really?
Yes. If you remove selfish interest. That is why if you critically look at the content of this oath we are taking, you see where they spelled out issue that relates to selfish interest, not to affect my official duty. And that is where they are having problem. You just raised the issue of taxation. Now, originally, looking at the principle of a good tax system, it should not be a levy that is exorbitant to pay. That's just a fact. That's why I said the whole problem now is boiled down into corruption. Just today, a student of mine for past years came. He's now on his own in Ibadan. He's into solar energy. Came around today, met me in the office, and he was trying to tell me one or two things he has been trying to do. How he finds it difficult to get himself registered under LECAN. I mean, LECAN is an acronym for an association that has to do with electrician. How he finds it difficult to even get himself registered under CAC. He made mention of that. How he has been trying to pay his, I don't know what they call it, a yearly amount of money that should be paid as tax. Not a tax now, a kind of maybe renewal of that is little license. Establishment, I don't know. Now he's now said what he has not been able to start paying is the tax. Then I now said, okay, come. And I gave you one or two insights. Though I know it might be very difficult to implement as far as Nigeria is concerned. But I said, try as much as possible to make sure that your voice is heard. Who knows? They might know that you have the idea and they will come down for you. It's not a must that if the tax authority asks you to pay 1,000 naira, it's not a must you pay. It should be negotiable. Then the question is, how do they arrive into that? Every income is taxable. Now the question is, are they even aware about your income? They don't. They just come and just fix price and say pay this as tax. And people who are novice will start paying that. So using tax as an excuse is not acceptable for their poor performance. It is not acceptable. Tax should be a levy that could be affordable. And that's just the fact. The only thing that is expected of them is what? Is to look for yardsticks, to look for medium at which they get this tax from individuals, from organizations.
Do you even think this was the best time for them to implement this tax reform?
Yes, of course, it's the best time. It's the best time. Tax is something we cannot overlook in a country, in an ideal economy. In fact, I would even say it's coming late. It's coming late. Because looking at the tax reform, I think is a very good one. Because I think it will, if it's implemented, wants you to make the reform, and the implementation might be faulty again. And that is what is happening to most of the policies being enacted. They make the policy, they approve. When you even listen to the presentation, you say, oh, this is a brilliant idea. But at the end of the day, it's something else.
No, it's still being contested.
Of course,
by
all the Muslims. So the implementation really matters more.
A lot.
A lot. The implementation really matters most. Now, I am even bringing back the word corrupt practices in the practice into tax. That's why I said every sector is corrupt. The practices of every sector is corrupt. So the corrupt practice from sector A, sector B, sector C, these are the things now that are now compounded to be a very huge menace, a big problem for us, for the whole entire economy. Do not forget that we have big wings in Nigeria. Notable who is who in Nigeria that evades tax. Are you very much aware about that?
Yeah, we are very much aware.
Yes, that evade tax. So what are we saying? If those people can evade tax, they will now say, okay, it's a very big woe, a big shame to tax authorities. Even despite the fact that we're very much aware that tax is also, payment of tax is actually an indicator for what? For developmental strides in an ideal economy. But mind you, it should not be something that will negotiate pains on individuals. No. They say it's a levy. That is why a ideal tax authority will look at your income. There are policies under tax systems. There are reliefs that should be put into consideration, and they will come straight and what? And show that you pay your tax at a convenient time and at a convenient place for you. Now the bottom line now lies on the authorities and the government to make judicious use of that little amount of money you have paid as tax towards developing the economy.
All right, let me just go straight to a question. I actually had a statement I wanted to make and needed your reaction, but I think as time is going by, we might not get to the place of a question I'd like to ask you. We've talked a lot about the government. I like the fact you were talking about selfish interest, and I was trying to ask about one of the statements I've been trying to work on such a project about the fact that I think we have more of a social problem than an economic problem. So our social problem is adding more to our economics. So reason why I'm saying that is because if we look at recently, a content creator, Scotty Guma, had been on social media coming against real estate agents, and really had been talking about the fact that many of the houses in Nigeria are overpriced, both rents, lease, or lands, or maybe buying of houses, to a point that even came out to castigate the fact that many of our business owners are not even pricing with our own legal tender, which is the naira. They are making use of the dollars to price their products and all that. Someone now made a tweet on, I think that was today, I think that was Puja, made a tweet and was talking about the fact that the government will do a road. It seems government developments now are becoming a prerequisite for many of these landlords to just increase their prices. A house that before, when we are there, we were pricing it for maybe, let's say, 250,000 for a 2-bedroom flat, and as at that time the road system there wasn't very okay. The minute the government just comes in and clears the road and the road is very good, the landlord comes the next day and say the house is 400 is way low. 500,000, 700. I've seen a house in Ondo town. You talked about the fact that they don't go out to do their feasibility studies, they don't go out to do their markets, and the landlord was talking about the fact that 2-bedroom flats in Ondo town he was calling it for 700,000 to everything that's going to complete it. 700,000. I asked myself a question. I know Ondo very well. Nobody, even a government official, ends up to 300,000 literally as salary. That's a salary worker, and we know that civil servants exist more here, except maybe the person is into internet fraud, which is extremely prevalent, or maybe the person is a cocoa trader, which we know cocoa, or maybe a farmer is thriving as we speak. So people like this that we can term as toxic capitalists, how do we address them in this system of overpricing?
Now, the subject matter is the real estate now. You see, I will continue to say this, though when I keep saying this, I know we are not excluded because we are actually the government.
Definitely.
But probably by now I should be very directive to say our leaders, those who has been given the mantle of leadership, to see to the overall being of every citizen, are always to be held responsible. Now, the question is, I wonder why real estate in advanced country is not lucrative. Are you very much aware about that?
Yeah, not extremely lucrative.
It's not even not extremely, it's not lucrative. Why? Because most of the houses there are owned by the government. If you want, you can buy. If you're capable of buying, you can buy, and it becomes yours. Now, just look at what you said now. I wouldn't know. I am very much, to the best of my knowledge, I don't think there is much a very germane or genuine transactional relationship between government and our landlords. I think the only thing our landlords are owing government is the tenancy. Is it tenancy rate? We call it habit. I don't know. I said there's a particular rate.
The particular rate of tenancy they pay
for erecting a building.
And immediately after that, nothing else.
After that, nothing else. Except if on a yearly basis, which I know, I don't think such is happening. Such is not happening. And government, you leave this so-called landlord association to inflict pains on tenants, on your citizens, though they are still part of your citizens. You will inflict pains on them through their negotiating
bills.
And it's quite very obvious. It's very irritating you said it. And government comes develop the streets and they say, oh, this place is developed. More reason why I have to make it 600 naira per year, 600,000 naira per year. So it's very irritating. Then what are we saying? Now look at these parties I've actually explained now. I have mentioned about in this discourse, I have mentioned about 3 parties. The tenants, the landlords, and the government. It is practical enough. Who should be the savior? The government should save the tenants from selfish landlords.
Who are actually the middlemen.
Yes,
so
they should do that.
Of middlemen immediately.
And how would they do that? They have a lot of ways to do that. I know landlord will say, don't you know how much is a bag of cement? The question is, how much a bag of cement being sold when we're building?
Some of them don't even do any renovations in that house.
Of course,
they increase prices.
I think you're the one who sent me something this morning, Abi.
Enugu
State.
Enugu State government.
But it must be a very good idea. Probably when they implemented theirs, maybe others will also implement theirs. We're not even talking about landlords. We're talking about the landlord is still there. Caretakers.
Agents.
So on a more serious note, it's very funny at the same time it's very irritating. Very funny and it's very, very irritating. And I tell you, these are one of the factors. Government did not even know that these are one of the factors that is even making most of their policies when it comes to remuneration of their workers not relevant. Yes. When your expenditure exceeds your income, it makes you as the employer not relevant. I don't know if
I get your statement.
Yes. If the means of livelihood, if the cost of living is very reasonably low, then most Orphans will not even agitate for more as such. Though there will still need for agitation, but most of the reason why these agitations for minimum wage, for increment in the standard of living, for increase in pay and other gratuities, or what do you call it, other condition of service, is because of the high cost of living. If you are working in a place and you see that your income cannot complement your cost of living, then they say you better go and agitate for more. And if you don't agitate, you leave. But where will you go to when there is no job? Then the answer now is side hustle. And you see a young man trying to strive hard to make side hustle at the end of the day. And you know, when you stress the body so much, you are cutting down your lifespan. We are living in a country whereby the health of citizens is nothing to them. You see, in case you don't know, the economic system or sector that is being practiced also do what? Also have a say to lifespan of every individual. On a more serious note, when hardship is too much, your life will be cut short. On a more serious note,
because doing everything to just make ends meet.
Yes.
That's why I said all government in all tiers has to put their hands on desk to make life easy for their citizens. And that's just the fact. And any government who fails to do that is a failure. And that's just the fact.
But do you think it's just the government majorly that needs to do something? Because I made a statement when I was trying to ask that question, that a social problem more than an economic problem. Because one of the things I discovered was lately, it's just been a thought process coming to me. I discovered that we have more undue importance to wealth, where everybody wants to get rich. Everybody needs the money because we want to compete with somebody. We want to, make ourselves look good. We want to be comfortable. We want to, be accepted by society.
Course, yes.
Nowadays, I think it's one of the things, though I'm just saying it on I was even telling a friend recently, I think we need hype men out of our parties. Parties used to be very interesting before bash.
You see,
nowadays we have hype men just insulting you if you don't have money and all those
on the most serious note, I understand what you are saying, the fact of what you are saying. But now, let me put the question back to you. If you actually want to correct this undue importance to social activities, is as far as the country is concerned, who do you think can make this work
in the best way possible?
Yeah.
Well,
government.
I think government will do more because they are the topmost body as an agent of socialization.
Take a look of what is happening. Look at some funny policies. They are funny, but they are relevant. Funny policies that is happening in Anambra State. No, they are turning to be cruise now. Look at what is funny things that is happening in Anambra State. I don't know if you are very much aware. They are very funny, but they actually enacted because of the insecurity.
Insecurities, yeah.
Herbalists coming to take to be licensed.
Yeah, definitely.
Is it to be licensed or to even stop work? I don't know the way they said it.
Yeah, they arrested a lot of them because of the height of ritual killings happening.
Look at this one again. Keeping late at clubs. It's also part of that. They are seriously doing a lot. Actually, they are doing that because of insecurity. The same way, simultaneously, this will also address our much. Now, let me bring a bit of these narratives down to actually buttress this. On a more serious note, I don't know where this is actually coming from. Though I never had much acquaintance into the political structure of our country, Nigeria, when Gani Fawehinmi was still alive. I heard from elderly ones around me who actually is listening to his campaign promises then, that the one who has 2 cars, I don't know if it was true, will have to surrender one.
for another.
It might not be total surrender like that. Probably it will bring up tax. It will bring up rigid policies that will encourage you into reducing some of your properties.
Some of your cost of living. Luxuries and all that.
Yes. But look at other countries. The house built by you or the house you hold in other countries, the parking space in your compound, you pay something for the company.
You pay tax here.
Of course.
It's not enough reason to even discourage you from having fleet of cars,
from even having
fleet of
multi-houses.
houses. Some people, you go to their garage, it seems as if they sell car. That is it. And I know they are not even paying cars, and they are not really paying taxes on properties. That is what is giving room for all this. That is why I said government still have a lot to do as far as that is concerned. We can discourage importation into the country, importation of more expensive, I mean, why would I use expensive luxury goods? It can be done because it's causing adverse effects on us. Look at our young ladies these days of 15, 16, iPhone everywhere. Do you know the cost of iPhone? Very expensive.
Some are even over $1 million.
Now, if you look at it, does your source of income complement the use of such iPhone? I think we even had a system whereby we have to present your statement of account or your source of income to be compared with the properties you're having. Then you explain how you arrive at that. Doing that, it will go a very long way towards reducing crime. And that is what is killing us. And that has also contributed to what? This overpricing that we're having. Because producers that are now very much aware that the prices attached to goods and services determines how acceptable the goods is to the public. The prices of what I'm putting on determines your reaction towards saying, "Oh, this is an expensive, is it original or not?" I don't know if you're getting it.
Yeah.
Yes, you see, you bought this Obo Morani. No be Igbo made o. This thing, because of the price attached to it. Why are we supposed to even assess somebody's words based on the prices of what is using? These are irritating things. You see a very rich man in other countries will always put on in fact, I don't know how to put it.
Faded jean.
A faded jean with a round neck and pull out, it's moving freely. But here in Nigeria, the rate of your agbada determines where you go into. Determines the social gatherings you go to. Determines how you'll be recognized in church by your pastors and churches and your ushers. If I don't let us go dwell into it.
Anything religious organizations. We should go there.
Another factor is the religious organization. So these are a lot of things that is happening now. So that's why I say government have a lot to do as far as that is concerned. They can do it. They can do it.
Well, thank you so much for your input on this particular discussion today. It has been very enlightening, and I hope that some of these discussions we have can be picked by some of our officials and they can be made, use of, and we can see the effects in our country, Nigeria. Thank you so much for coming around this morning.
Thank you very much.
Well, this is not the end of Daybreak Africa. As you know, we have another package prepared for you, and now it's sports. So we go for sports. We'll be right back to say our goodbyes. Welcome back once again, and this is where we say our goodbyes, and I hope you enjoyed the sports segment on Daybreak Africa. Well, today's topic has been very interesting. We talked about overpricing and how it affects inflation and the economy of Nigeria in general, and we had a guest who did justice to this, an economist who is named Uchenna Alphonsus. He talked more about how the government can come into this equation and make a whole lot of difference. I'm very certain that you could see the kind of solution that he preferred, and I'm very certain as well that these solutions has also one way or the other been cited by some other individuals. But my own issue is why we keep seeing these issues persisting over and over and over again when we know we have solutions to them. Do you see them as impossible solutions?
They are not impossible solutions, they are logical solutions. They are solutions that even the government knows will work. But you see, explaining Nigeria to a layman actually is very difficult. But I think one of the best explanation I have to it is the fact that what we don't see is a statement I think Adewale Adebayo made a year ago, I was following up a statement. He said, many of the times businessmen employ politicians, and politicians many times are employees to these businessmen. If in some instances, even these politicians are the businessmen themselves. So definitely, they are also working for their own personal gains too as well. So it's just the harsh truth of our life is. So many times that solution could, affect their accounts. So definitely,
you know what
how
we're saying.
want to make.
I think that was a part of the corruption which he talked about.
Yeah.
Anyways, this is where we'll come to the end of this episode of Daybreak Africa. Thank you once again for staying tuned, and do not forget, follow us on YouTube and other social media outlets to get more information and some of our programs. Thank you once again. I remain Angela Daku. See you again.
And my name is Ikhonede Joshua Deji. It is time to say bye to you guys. We'll see you tomorrow once again on Daybreak Africa. Bye, guys.